Mm-hmm. Let's see how'd it work. Pretty bright in here tonight, isn't it? Have to go like that. Oh, man. I'm doing a nostril flare for you. Oh, and I'm still talking about it. There's more ass to kick on Dunkirk. Hey, who wants to go to Timmy Nolan's after the show? No, last call's at 1 a.m. Timmy Nolan's is Toluca Lake's favorite watering hole. I didn't like Hacksaw Ridge, by the way. I didn't like it. There were so many Australians playing Americans. I honestly, I really didn't like Hacksaw Ridge. Yeah, Mel Gibson really, a lot of cliches, and that story didn't need it. It just needed to be told a little better. But I didn't like Hacksaw Ridge. And also, one of my pet peeves about Hacksaw Ridge was every officer, Wie geht's in Deutschland? Every officer, like during his court-martial, whatever, they're all wearing, khakis. And, like, apparently, like, irons weren't invented in 1944. Everyone, like, was wearing, their khaki uniforms right out of the dryer. It was really stupid, And sorry, the U.S. Army, in a garrison environment in 1944, starched their uniforms. So that one little thing annoyed the shit out of me all through Hacksaw Ridge. Every time he went in front of an officer, or whatever, a Sam, what's his name, that Australian? No, it annoyed the hell out of me that they couldn't have the costume person just run a goddamn iron over some of those uniforms. Stuart on Twitter, Stuart McDougall, apparently is British. And he says, Brian, love your show, especially tonight. However, there has not been an English army since 1707. We are British. All right, what should I play as a bumper? Yeah, if you don't know that, Petula Clark, who sang Downtown, her Bean of Kevin and Bean at K-Rock, that's his aunt, Petula Clark. How much time? Okay. I'm going to play September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Hey, this is Lord. Listen to my new album, Melodrama, now on Spotify.
All right, thank you, Lord. All right. We are all queued up. Rock of the Marn. Rock of the Marn. Do you know the song? You know the Third ID song? And I'm all queued up. What do you say? Wait, what was that? Oh, okay. I didn't buy into it, by the way. I reported it. And I also know that there's a lot of stuff that has not come out that it could be uglier than that. I wouldn't give a bean to be a fancy pants marine. I'd rather be the dog-faced soldier like I am. I wouldn't trade my old ODs for all the Navy's dungarees. For I'm the marching pride of Uncle Sam. In army posters that I saw, it said the army builds men, so they're tearing me down to build me over again. No, he hasn't. In fact, I know someone who served with Jester. And in fact, the guy now is a stand-up comic here in the LA area, but he served actually with Jester in Iraq, and so Jester is he's keeping it kind of on the DL these days, but you'll be hearing from him very soon through a way that we have to talk. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits here until the midnight, and you can suggest a bumper if you want. I'm live on YouTube. If you go to unsheepyourself.com, like you're a sheep and you don't want to be a sheep, so you unsheepyourself.com, and that'll take you right to the YouTube page, and I'm streaming live. So I've got a couple, Churchill bites to play here, because he understood the situation and how dire it was in late May 1940. But just for your own historical edification, Dunkirk was not the entire British Army leaving France and that's it. In fact, like I say, it was an episode. It was a remarkable save of what should have been an overwhelming defeat. The British Army was still engaged to the west of Dunkirk with the French Army, and they were getting their asses kicked pretty hard. But the British continued to reinforce France through mid-June, and then they pulled all their people out. The French, this is what's in the movie. Like I say, the French are upset because they're not shown with their defending of Dunkirk and all that, but they are shown in the movie. And many something like one out of 7 people taken off the beach at Dunkirk were French. And then Michael Chapeo was asking about the civilian boats. Were any of them hit? Yeah, there were not. As you could have walked on the boats from France to England, and the Luftwaffe was hitting what they could, but they didn't quite understand what was going on. Also, they were targeting large Royal Navy ships because the assumption was those are what had the troops on them. But yeah, there were dozens of ships that were actually hit by the Luftwaffe strafing or bombing them, but overwhelmingly, the British pulled 366,000 guys off this beach who had no right to not be prisoners. It was amazing. And the Wehrmacht, the Germans knew that a gigantic cock-up of the first water had just happened. And now, after Goering failed to effect a British surrender, now Goering was saying, don't worry, I can destroy the RAF in a month, and then we'll invade. And then he failed to do that in what was called the Battle of Britain. So anyway, to the west, the British continued fighting. And then, like I say, this was sort of the harsh toke, the sadtrombone.com for the French, is that the majority of them, as they were pulled off the beach and brought to Britain, they were re-equipped and redeployed back to France. And the British and French prisoners that the Germans took in France, because someone had to be the rear guard. Someone had to fight the rear guard action while everyone else was getting on boats. They were taken prisoner. Many thousands of British were taken prisoner, and they were literally marched back into Germany. In a 20-day march, they were marched back into Germany, and they spent the war from June of 1940 until April of 1945 in work camps and things like that. it was not a fun time to be a POW of the Germans during World War II. But Churchill understood what a near-run thing, as they say, Dunkirk was, and that they were lucky to get those many guys off there. But now that they had them, they had to face the impending German invasion of Britain. There was the second in command of the Luftwaffe, Erhard Milch, said immediately when he landed at Dunkirk, he said, we have to send our paratroopers to England immediately and take airfields and start flying guys over. We should not wait for boats. None of that crap. We can't do that. We can't set up for that. We can't start training for it. Let's just act like the English Channel doesn't exist. Let's act like it's a border. Let's start. And he got crickets in return. And it was up to the Luftwaffe to sweep the RAF of the skies, and they couldn't do it. The speech, the Fight Them on the Beaches speech, was June 4th, 1940, in Parliament. And Churchill said, we will fight them in the streets, fight them on the beaches, we shall never surrender. And it was very, very thrilling stuff. But deep down, Churchill knew this is a pivotal moment for the empire. This is a pivotal moment for Western civilization. And he didn't know yet the full count of soldiers that had returned to Dunkirk and whether or not he would have an army. So on June 12th, he gave the famous, this will be our finest hour speech. And I'll play you this in two pieces. Here's the wrap-up of this 30-minute speech as he describes how literally, as he was giving the speech, the French and British, who were still in France, were getting the hell out because the Battle of France, as General Weygand called it, was over.
Including all that we have known.
Oh wait, I quick Churchilled.
What General Weygand has called the Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life and the long continuity of our institutions and our empire. The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be freed, and the life of the world may move forward into broad, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted science.
An amazingly deep understanding of the crisis Britain was in, and not clouded by undue martial exuberance or patriotism. Churchill had been to war, and he knew that they were in the bottom of the ninth and they were down 10 runs to the Germans. And that he was telling the truth about that, wasn't he? That if Britain could not stand alone and withstand Hitler's attack and avoid invasion, then Western civilization would continue. The English annoy the hell out of me. I'll tell you, the line form's here to be annoyed by the English, but I will give them credit for this. They saved the world. And again, we were a year and a half from even entering the war, and the English saved the world. We'll be back right after this. Some more on Dunkirk, and also how close was ISIS to a dirty bomb. If only they knew. They would be really pissed if they knew how close they were. That and more coming up. It's the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here until midnight. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chappelle, the news. Okay, what'd I miss? The dude, you know what? James Ingram, James Ingram from The Dude. Whatever happened to him? How come he had those two songs, 100 Ways and what was the other one? Quincy Jones, by the way, from Bremerton, Washington. Out there on Kitsap County, in Kitsap County. That's a good idea. Well, that foam on the beach and all that, that's just sea foam. It does that up in the Pacific Northwest. It does that, the Pacific Ocean off of Oregon and state of Washington, up in Alaska and BC and Northern California. It does that. It just whips up sea foam. It looks kind of gross. It looks like poop foam, but that's a normal occurrence. Is what that is.
Any big ship like that, is it automatically going to be nuclear powered?
It just is so efficient for something that big. You know, it never has to be. It has to be refueled in 25 years. It's just that efficient. And nuclear power was practically tailor made for submarines. You know, because they literally can circumnavigate the globe without ever surfacing.
And if there's a problem, you can just put them at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, we've got 2 nukes at the bottom of the Atlantic, the Scorpion and the Thresher.
What was that, an airline crash?
No, they're nuclear submarines. Yeah, USS Scorpion and USS Thresher are way, way down there. All right, we cross channel on a ferry from Dunkirk to Dover. Nice trip. Cool to be near that history. Now it's all the channel, by the way. I only did the channel once. Didn't like it. Not a fan. My mom, they do now, like Strikers, the 8-wheeled Strikers. The driver has monitors. The driver has cameras, and so that's kind of standard now. That when the driver's buttoned up, he no longer has to rely on the prisms. He has TV cameras, so it's cool. Back in my day, driving a M3 cavalry fighting vehicle or an M1 tank, we used those prisms. But yeah, my mom knew Canadian guys that died at Dieppe. She knew Canadians who were at Dunkirk, you know, who were drafted in 1939, and a year later were with the Canadian Army at Dunkirk. And then also she knew guys who died at Dieppe in 1942. And one of the many royal screwings at the hands of the British that the Canadians got. How much time?
Less than a minute, like 45 seconds.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'm good. Oh, what's that? Oh, you mean on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Free consultation. Call 800-935-60. No, I just got curious. 935-6077. Optimatus relief. Here it is. KFI, our radio station.
Mike Huckabee. Huckabee let that fucker go. Then he goes up to Parkland, and kills 4 cops. KFI 640, more stimulating talk. Gotta hit you with the earth, wind, and fire on that one. So, all right. So back to Churchill. Just giving you the lay of the land of Dunkirk, so that you don't walk into the theater and you're all like wrongified and stuff. So again, the British salvaged a win out of what should have been virtually a war-ending defeat, because Hitler should have taken 370,000 British soldiers prisoner at Dunkirk, but they got away because Hitler stopped his army. But Churchill understood that things were still pretty desperate. And after the consolidation of the men and the head count was done, and it was clear that by this point, by June 4th, 1940, there was nothing for it. France was going to fall. Already, some of the French high command were making noises about feathering their own nests after the surrender, and how are they going to do it. The Germans were already throwing out their plan to certain elements of the French government about, look, we're not going to occupy the entire country, but you're going to administer the occupation in much of your own country. And they were already negotiating behind the scenes. So Churchill understood France is lost. I'm not going to reinforce any more troops there. And then also his head of fighter command, General Hugh Dowding, Chief Air Marshal Hugh Dowding, went to Churchill and he said, I know you've promised the French all these squadrons, but we can't do that. There's going to be a fight here in Britain. I need them in Britain. They're no good there. They're doing no good. We're just going to lose them. And so Churchill had to go back on his word and tell the French, sorry, not one more fighter is crossing the channel, because the battle's coming here to Britain. And so the speech, the finest hour speech. Let me just finish this up. You heard him give the score that if we lose to Hitler, then a new dark age will descend upon the world, and yes, including the United States. And he was right. He was absolutely correct. The United States, keep in mind, actively there were groups or political parties. The United States was actively, loudly, politically, Democrats and Republicans talking about staying out of this war. It's got nothing to do with us. That last war was a bamboozlement. We're not going to do this. And it really did take Pearl Harbor to get the United States out of its coma on this one. And had Hitler, and the U.S. military was not prepared in the summer of 1940 to go to war with Hitler, certainly not to liberate Britain. So Churchill knows this. He knows that now Britain is down to the pilots, to the fighter pilots, to these young men in these planes to defeat the Luftwaffe, to avoid invasion. And so this was the end of his finest hour speech in June of 1940.
Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duty. So bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
And it's hard to debate, hard to argue with. So again, I hope I'm giving you sort of a big picture before you walk in this movie. I can't recommend the movie Dunkirk highly enough. It's really beautiful filmmaking. And if you don't want to read any bit, if you don't want to do any research or Wikipedia Dunkirk tonight or tomorrow morning, whatever, you're still going to see a pretty amazing movie, beautifully filmed, astoundingly accurate. Sorry, cough button. And I'm gonna pay for it again on an IMAX screen. That's how good it is. And you know that this is kind of the bottom line. If I come on about a war movie and I can't find a flaw in it, then you need to go see that movie. Now, 6 months from now, I may feel embarrassed that I'm gushing about the movie so much. But my spidey sense is that it really is as good as I thought it was. And I've been excited about this movie since I saw the first trailer. And as I was driving home, one of the things I was thinking was, how come it took 77 years to make a movie that good about Dunkirk, or to make a movie, period, about Dunkirk? The more famous movie, Battle of Britain, and you've heard me talk about this before, was made in 1968, 68 or 69. Phenomenal movie, astounding cast. You can never beat that cast, and it's a great movie. Some of the special effects suck, but that was the movie that's how Brits want to remember World War II, is with their backs against the wall, a couple hundred young men in Spitfires defeated the numerically superior and even in many ways technically superior Luftwaffe, staving off an invasion. And what would have surely been the end of Britain. Because this is the way the world would have looked had the English failed, is again the United States. We would have justified ourselves not getting involved in the war. Britain would be occupied by the Nazis. France, we have the model of how they did that in France. The Nazis, by the way, if you don't know this, the Nazis only occupied about 1/3 of France in World War II, the coastal regions. The government that they set up, called the Vichy government, was in Vichy, France, and they administered the occupation. They did the rest of the country. And when the Reichsprotector of France said, hey, round up some Jews in Lyon, the French went out and did it. They were the ultimate collaborators. That's why the French terror alert level is the third highest is panic, the second highest is surrender, and the first highest is collaborate. And so they're never going to live that down. This is part of their sensitivity about Dunkirk. They wanted Dunkirk to show that, yes, indeed, the French were protecting Dunkirk, fighting the Germans and the whole thing. They fought to the end. And then the ones who wanted to continue fighting followed General de Gaulle to England and became the Free French, and the whole thing. The French don't like this idea, this notion that they're the cheese-eating surrender monkeys and the whole thing. And then point in fact, the Free French fighting with the Allies using American equipment, they were pretty badass. I mean, they had an axe to grind, you could say, about the Germans. And the French military, only people who've never interoperated with the French military think that the French are wieners. They're not. But this was not their happiest moment. And so maybe that's the reason that Dunkirk took so long to be made, is that maybe the English didn't want to relive how close this was. But anyway, it's a terrific movie, and I'm glad to see, like according to LA Times, I'm glad to see that it's doing well here in the U.S. Beautiful film. All right, when we come back, how close was ISIS to a dirty bomb? They have no idea how close they were. And how close is North Korea to a ICBM test? Another one. We'll get to that and more. It's the Dark Secret Place. One more time, Brian Suits in here live until midnight, KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chappé with the news. Okay, what did I miss? Any questions? Let's see, where are we going? Yep. Wait, what was that? And Kennedy's hanging with Captain Kirk tonight, coincidence? Is she? What's she doing with William Shatner? I'm going to be on with Kennedy on Tuesday night on Fox Business, by the way. Oh, definitely. I think Dunkirk is going to be easily nominated for actors and for the film, and then a bunch of technical things for the film, for sound, for cinematography, for everything.
Snoring is often caused by sleep apnea, a dangerous condition where you stop breathing during the night. CPAP is the first line of therapy for sleep.
Damn right.
Studies show about half of the people given a CPAP machine don't even use it. If you or your partner can't get relief from CPAP, now there's a...
I always forget the camera's there, I'm always...
Inspire works inside your body by delivering mild stimulation across
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I think I've seen most every documentary about Dunkirk. And by the way, live at the Orange Dave & Buster's Wednesday night. I'll be doing a live show from 8 to 10 at the Orange, not Irvine, the Orange Dave & Buster's. And you can get tickets at the Facebook page.
There it is. Lows tonight are going to be in the 60s for the overnight hours. Tomorrow, another warm one, mostly sunny, beach highs into the mid-70s. And then 80s and 90s for the most part in the inland areas. Traffic from your helpful SoCal Honda Traffic Center. Better going now in Diamond Bar on the 60.
This was a crash on the 60 eastbound right at Grand Avenue. It's just been cleared from lanes, but the damage is done. You're seeing delays from Brea Canyon. In Tarzana, there is a work zone. This is on the 101 northbound from Reseda to Topanga Canyon. Caltrans going to be taking away the 2 left lanes for road work. Your drive is stacked from Balboa Boulevard. Good news in Santa Ana. Earlier stalled car that was on the 55 southbound right at Dyer. That's been cleared from lanes. Your drive is up to full speeds in that area. This traffic report is brought to you by San Diego Zoo Safari Park. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Brian Vance.
Go on a summer safari.
The ME-262 was 1944.
Astounding acrobatic feats and martial arts demonstrations. Visit SanDiegoZooSafariPark.org for details. San Diego County.
No, I keep forgetting about that. Then also, I'm Bill Handel on Monday and Tuesday, so tomorrow I've got a quick turnaround. I'm probably going to sleep here on a couch.
Damage to your home and belongings? The government won't bail you out. Government assistance is limited and is always
And then Mo Kelly will do it Wednesday and Thursday.
government loan to rebuild may not be enough and must be repaid. Get the strength to rebuild. Whether you own or rent, contact your home insurance company about earthquake insurance from the California Earthquake Authority or learn more at earthquakeauthority.com. The key to success. Keep it simple, especially when it comes to hiring the right people for your growing business. That means finding the right candidates, tools that are easy to use and can
Anyway, toning down what? The Tim Conway Jr. commercials. Nope, not my lane.
questions to help you find more qualified candidates. Simple. Review applicants, take notes, and schedule
No,
interviews from a
not playing What is Love.
on your phone, tablet, or desktop. Simple. Indeed is hiring made simple. And simple work.
How much time?
Study proves 5 times more hires are made.
Oh, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Apparently, we're selling commercials these days.
Boosting your listing in relevant search results and helping you find qualified candidates.
Woo.
Indeed, the world's #1 job site. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply. It was a 10-year-old.
So yeah, if you go to themaven.net/Dark Secret Place, that's where a lot of videos and things will start morphing over to. And I'm finally going to start, blogging there. But that's something that that's something that I usually do videos, for. I've never been a writer or blogger. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing. There's Michael Chappé.
I have a question for you.
What?
Oh, hello. That laser that the Navy debuted and said it's been deployed.
Yeah.
That be a bigger version out in space, maybe aimed at ICBMs?
Is
we don't know
the
about?
problem is the power source. It needs per shot. It needs a lot of power. And it's that thing that's on the USS Ponce. It's only got a range of, like on a perfectly clear day with no vapor in the air, it's only got a range of like 3 kilometers. Yeah. Now in space, it would be,
Infinite, almost.
yeah.
Well, there's no use in the way. But I was like, that was hopeful. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking they're letting that out so that the world sees that.
Yeah.
Don't try it.
Welcome to the High Life.
Nope, I'm not going to play Cry the Vatos. Yeah, I know, believe me.
To learn more about ASU online degrees, 35517.
I'll just do rank and file. Yeah, I'm queued up. What was that, dude? They should give you a daily broadcast for sleeping on you big time. Oh, I know. Yeah, whatever. I love Rank and File. It's a great LA band. The boss is out of town, so I can play longer bumpers, which is kind of lazy, to be honest with you. KFI, M640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place one more time. Brian Suits here. Then back tomorrow at 8 o'clock for Super Hyper Local Sunday, when the news comes to a grinding halt at 8 p.m. on Sundays. And then I'll be filling in for Bill Handel on Monday and Tuesday. And then live show at the Dave & Buster's in Orange. Not the one in Irvine, but in Orange. So go to my Twitter feed at Dark Secret Place. It's the pinned tweet. Two for one tickets. So get them, damn you. Well, ISIS didn't even know this, but they were closer to the raw material for a dirty bomb than they perhaps even knew. When ISIS overran Mosul in 2014, it laid claim to a bonanza of weapons, but the most fearsome one was never used. Locked on a college campus were 2 caches of cobalt-60, the core ingredient of a weapon that could be used to spread radiation. On the day the Islamic State overran the Iraqi city of Mosul in 2014, the Islamic State was not set up to be a occupation force. Had they been, they would have sat there and said, okay, what's our inventory? Where's the water department? How many employees do we have? Who's at that university? And is there anything that we can use at that university? Western intelligence agencies were aware of the cobalt and watched anxiously for 3 years for signs that the militants might try to use it. Those concerns intensified in late 2014 when Islamic State officials boasted of obtaining radioactive material, and again early last year when the terrorists took over laboratories at the same college campus with the apparent aim of building new kinds of weapons. In Washington, independent nuclear experts drafted papers and ran calculations about the potency of the cobalt-60 and the extent of the damage it could do. The details were kept under wraps on the chance that Mosul's occupiers might not be fully aware of what they had. Iraqi military commanders were appraised of the potential threat as they battled ISIS fighters block by block. Finally, earlier this year, government officials entered the bullet-pocked campus building and peered into the storage room where the cobalt machines were kept. They were still there, exactly as they were when ISIS seized the campus in 2014. The cobalt apparently had never been touched. So good on whoever it was, because someone could have come to ISIS and said, look, I know something you don't know, but I need to live a little better here in Mosul, and it'll be worth it. When I tell you what I know, then I get to smoke, and my wife can take off her hijab, right? But no one ever did that, and but then again, they didn't move it. And here's the thing about a dirty bomb is that, and I don't hear government officials discussing the psychological impact of it. It's that, yes, you could very really actually use low-grade radioactive material and then use this conventional explosive, C4 or whatever, and you could blow it up at 1,000 feet above ground level in downtown LA, and you would irradiate blocks and blocks and blocks of LA. And then, of course, it would take months or years to clean up. But it could be cleaned up. It could actually be cleaned up. It could be recoverable. Problem is, who would ever work there again? because in this day and age, we assume the government's lying to us. So in reality, a dirty bomb doesn't really actually have to be that radioactive. It just has to crack a Geiger counter. And that psychologically would be bad enough that nobody would ever want to work downtown or wherever you do it, downtown San Francisco, etc. Anywhere like that. And so that's the part I think that's underestimated by the government, because they're thinking in real terms, like actually irradiate a town, and then you'd have to clean it up for years, or you'd have to block it off for years or 100 years or whatever the half-life is and all that, or decide to go clean it up. Well, even if you clean it up, nobody would ever go back in there, because the government would be saying, oh, Salt Lake City's fine now. Go downtown, go shopping, eat outside, the whole thing. Nobody would ever believe them. It doesn't even have to be that radioactive. It just has to trigger a Geiger counter and get to the point where the government says, oh, yeah, they used a dirty bomb. But think of that. If they said, well, a dirty bomb was used on Kansas City, but it's not a real big one, nobody would believe the government. And why would you even take the chance, right? So that's the real pernicious part of a dirty bomb, is that it doesn't even have to be that dirty. It can just be kind of a disheveled bomb or something. All right, Super Hyperlocal Sunday is going to be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. All of the events of the weekend will come to a grinding halt. We'll wrap them up. Follow me on Twitter at Dark Secret Place. The YouTube channel is at YouTube, The Dark Secret Place, but it's easier just to go to unsheepyourself.com, and that will redirect you to that. And then more stuff as I take over social media in the next couple weeks. There will be more and more material of the video and audio and written type, because I'm becoming an information source. So the Dark Secret Place is becoming its own thing. All right, thanks to Hector, thanks to Michael Chappé, and we'll see you all back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. for Super Hyperlocal Sunday. That's the Dark Secret Place for the, the 22nd of July, 2017. Out, KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk. Who seem to know that Japan was working on Sunday bomb, may even have detonated their own dirty bomb. And what's now North Korea? All right. I said fighters were dressing in dirty. Yeah, look on my Twitter feed. About 2 hours ago, I posted two sets of pictures of ISIS guys in Mosul dressed as women. I mean, it's pretty scary. But I've been to Mosul, and I can tell you that the disguises are pretty accurate. All right, see you tomorrow night for Super Hyperlocal Sunday.